Yeah, I'm getting on.
Testing. Can anybody hear me?
I can
Yes,
hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Hello, Stuart. Are you with us already?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just no picture tonight. All right. We'll call this meeting to order. It's the November 4th, 2024 meeting of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency for the town of Woodstock, Connecticut. The time is 7:01 p.m. And we'll start with a roll call.
Marla Butts,
Mark Parker.
Stuart Peasley.
And Bill Rowinski. We have no alternates to appoint. Moving on to action on minutes of previous meeting.
I have found one, Marla Butts speaking, I found one error on page 3. Item D, II, fourth line down. Marla requires a locust map. That should just say locus, no, drop the T.
And there's two other ones on page 5. J, number I, is still within the appeals period. Drop the G, please.
Say that again, please.
Page 5,
Yep,
letter J,
yep,
the whole single I towards the end of the sentence is still within with the G on the end.
okay.
Drop the G.
And I noticed one on page 2, number 7, new applications. A, Roman numeral 2. Marla Butts noted that the request was to determine meditation. I
Yeah.
think it's either remediation or what did you want there, Marla? Not meditation.
Remediation.
Remediation, right. REMEDI,
ATION.
ATION, right. Yeah.
Be nice to have meditation, but I don't think it would do anything.
Yeah. Let's meditate on that.
On page 6, number 9, and letter A, the fourth line down, questions and concerns, says concerned, unaddressed, concerns, unaddressed. Everybody agree with that?
Yes,
Where was that? No, page 6, what?
Number 9, citizens' comments.
Oh, okay.
Under A, the fourth line down, questions and concern. Should probably be concerns.
With an S
Yep.
instead of an ED, yeah.
I just saw on page 7. I just saw that. I can't believe you spelled my name wrong. S-T-U-R-T. Page 7, number 2, S-T-U-R-T should be S-T-U-A-R-T.
There we go. Yeah. Gotta get that right.
There was, um,
Is there anything else?
yeah, I can't remember. I'm looking for it. I saw it when I scanned through earlier. I didn't write it down. Hmm, Well, one thing I do know is for, it would be page 5, number 5. Stuart Peasley noted this as an engineering issue. Basically, I think at that point, I was just trying to explain, which we can talk later about tonight, but it's basically topographical, creating swales that will redirect the water, surface water, away from the walls.
So are you asking for it to be changed from engineering issue to topographical issue?
Yeah, that would probably be, that was my note of concern.
So change and engineering to a topographical.
One more typo, on the bottom of page 4, Stuart Peasley asked age of existing wall. It is unknown, should be unknown.
Oh, there needs to be an end at the end of unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anything else?
I move to accept the minutes of October 7th with the 6, I'm going to count them up again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 edits as noted in
Second,
discussion.
I seconded it, Bill.
Okay, I didn't catch it. We have a motion for Marla Butts to accept the minutes, seconded by Mark Parker. Minutes as with the 6 edits on there. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed or abstain? The motion passes. Okay, we're on to number 5, citizens' comments. Is there someone who would like to comment?
Yeah,
Your
yes,
way?
yes, thank you. This is Don Gagnon. I was at, I think, your August meeting, and I'm with the Laurel Ridge, the Solar campsite, and we're looking to get our pond hydraulically dredged, and you made some recommendations to us in order to get a permit. And what I'd like to do is just run those by you to make sure we're on the right track and we're not leaving anything out. To date, we did have our dam inspected, and it was declared safe for dredging. We had that done by Killingly Engineering. Norm Tebow did that, and we have the paperwork. We also engaged with a soil scientist, Margaret Washburn, who's on this call right now, and she's identified a dewatering area and an area to deposit the sediment, the dried out sediment, and she's approved both of those sites. We have hired JD Engineering, Dan Blanchett. He's agreed to do the site plans for the dewatering. And Matt Vogt from New England Aquatic is going to do a bathymetric map of the pond. That will be done on Thursday. So we're in the process. We're going to have all of that. And I'm wondering if there's anything else that may have been left off that we need in order to secure the permit to get this dredging done.
Yeah, if Marla Beth speaking, so J&D is doing a plan. Included on that plan should be a water handling plan. I'm not sure, are you going to do hydraulic dredging or are you going to
Yes.
do? Okay, so you're
Hydraulic.
yes, so you're going to need a water handling plan. Looks like the materials that you're removing, are they of organic in nature?
They're basically all organic. It's accumulated
Yeah.
organic sediment.
Yes, so that's going to be pretty wet, pretty mucky. So you're going to need a dewatering settling basin of some sort. So that'll have to be included in your plan by J&D. There are some standards in the guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control. And a lot of it's going to be based upon the rate of hydraulic dredging and the rapidity with which you expect it to dry out.
Yeah.
And other erosion and sediment controls, whether or not they're going to use a turbidity curtain in the area that they're going to isolate the excavation area from the rest of the pond, and if you're going to be doing any phasing of the removal. So sometimes when they do hydraulic dredging, they will use a turbidity curtain to isolate the area that's being dredged, and then move the turbidity curtain so that it's basically phased, so that you got multiple phases. And it doesn't have to be any long period of time between the phases, but it'll give you an idea as to how fast your material's dewatering and whether or not you have to change your timeline. So you're going to need a potential sequence of construction and also a schedule, an anticipated schedule.
Yeah. And Margaret, I hope you're getting some of this also. So a water handling plan, a potential sequence of construction, something on the erosion and sediment, turbidity current, which is part of the sequence of construction. And this is all would be in the site plan from the from JD Engineering, or is this something that the dredging company, I guess they would work
No,
together?
this would be done by the engineer, because the engineer is
Okay.
going to have to do the calculations. The hydraulic company is going to have to provide for you with the rate of removal, of effluent removal, so
Yeah,
that the engineer can figure out what the sizing of the dewatering basin has to be based
yeah,
upon your discharge rates from your hydraulic dredge.
If I may
okay.
say, if I may say something, Marla, we've looked at some previous plans that New England Aquatic Services has used in the past, and they actually lined a beach and the area near the beach with some heavy plastic weighted down, and they just dewatered back into the pond. They put the plastic on the beach and put the they're going to be in, these great big dewatering bags or tubes that slowly let the water back out.
So what is the clarity of the water that's released? Do they have any documentation on that?
Yeah, we're going to be doing testing to satisfy DEEP is requiring us to do not only testing of the organic matter, but we're going to estimate what the effluent's going to be by doing a bench test. The lab is going to do a bench test to estimate what the effluent's going to be like. And at first they the folks at Laurel Ridge actually wanted to put the dewatering bag just up slope of a big wooded shrub swamp, and I didn't approve that location because of the amount of water that's going to come out of these bags over the course of about 3 months. It would just be too much water for the swamp to be able to handle. And so I looked at what has been done in other towns, and it makes an awful lot more sense to me to just dewater the organic matter back into the pond and use the turbidity curtains to protect, keep the silt or any kind of particulates from moving downstream. And so DEEP is having us do the testing. We need to get a general permit for the discharge of groundwater remediation wastewater. And so we're doing all the testing that they require. And this has been approved method in many other towns. I think he's done 50 other ponds this way or something of that order.
So then I would suggest that you would provide at least reference to the most recent towns, a couple of the most recent towns that had that done,
Okay.
to given so that we can get an identification of what their experience is. So Dan can contact them to find out, if they had any problems with it.
Okay.
Is this a public water supply watershed?
No, it's And I'm not, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but it's not a public water supply. Our pond, I mean, it's part of a larger water system and it flows down Lebanon Brook, which eventually goes down into one of the aquifers in Southbridge for one of their reservoirs.
So it heads north.
It's south, and
Oh.
Lebanon Brook flows. No, we're south. Yeah, it's north. It
Yeah,
flows.
it has to head north if it's going to Southbridge, because that's north
Yeah.
of Woodstock.
It heads north.
Okay, so it's not running to want like the Wyndham Water Works. It's not running there. Right.
No.
Okay. Is this within 500 feet of the town line?
No,
Okay. So we don't need to contact Southbridge.
no.
I think we just have to wait to see what the plan is. You might want to bring the plan in a preliminary form to let
Okay.
before you actually file your application, to get some feedback on it ahead of time in case there's changes that needed to be made.
Sure.
Because you're looking at doing this probably during a low flow period of time. So the water is rebounding. It will start to rebound. We're in a drought right now.
Right.
Excuse me, a water deficit. So water flows are pretty low right now, but there's no way of knowing how long that's going to last because typically they start rebounding by this time, but we're really low on water. So, and pretty soon you're going to be coming into winter too. Now, they don't do the hydraulic dredging in winter time, do they?
He does, but we prefer that he doesn't. I mean, I'm looking, I think ideally in March for a variety of reasons for him to
Mhm.
start doing the dredging. He says it'll take about 6 weeks for the dredging, then 2 to 3 months for dewatering on the beach. So, you know, I'm looking at probably around a mid-March would be ideal if we can get all the
Okay.
permitting and everything done.
So in the plan, you want an estimate of the total cubic yardage of material to be removed and the rate of removal, anticipated rate of removal, because you're not really going to know that completely until you actually start doing it.
Right.
We already have a ballpark figure of how much material is gonna be coming out, which is about 4,500
Yeah.
Cubic yards of sediment, but that'll be also included with water in it because it's a hydraulic
Right.
dredge.
Right. I mean, ultimately, he's looking at about 2,000 to 2,500 yards of dried organic
Okay.
sediment.
Okay. That's the kind of thing that should be on your plan or in a narrative accompanying the application.
Yep.
Now, I think that we were going to ask if it might be possible to file this for a permit for use as of right tonight. Get feedback.
I would not recommend it under, I'm not sure that it would be covered under conservation of soil and water. That's the only non-regulated use that it could fall under potentially. But with that volume of material, that section of the statute talks about provided you're not altering the natural indigenous character of the wetland or water course. And I don't know whether dredging would be incorporated in that or not. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels though. I think we'd have to see the plan first before we could even cross that.
You know, I think that the pond is more or less there because it's on bedrock, and aside from the organic matter that's built up, I don't think it has a sandy permeable bottom. The whole area is shallow to bedrock soils, and so
you're saying you're just removing the accumulated sediments?
right, and I think it's the vast majority of it is organic matter, like all the leaves that have fallen in for over the years, as happens with all ponds and water courses over time, they fill in with leaves unless they're periodically dredged. And so,
Well,
you know, admittedly, we want to remove that amount of material, but on the other hand, I don't think we'll be, you know, seeing as how I think the bottom of the pond is mostly bedrock, It's not like we'll be scooping out stuff that didn't fall in to the pond. And
Yeah.
I understand that we need to carefully consider how this is gonna be done, and you'd probably need more information before you can even really answer that question.
Yeah, so you can bring the plan in a preliminary form and then ask it at that time as to whether or not you think it should be an individual permit or if it should be a non-regulated use. Remember that non-regulated uses and uses permitted as of right, they have no time limit and they are not revocable. So there's no method for revoking it if something goes really wrong. But when you have a permit, there's a potential for revoking a permit. There's a whole procedure for that, but there isn't any for a non-regulated use or a use permitted as of right. So those are kind of given very carefully.
Understood.
That's all the comments I have for now.
I don't, thank you very much. Margaret, you don't have any other questions, do you?
No, but I say thank you as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. We'll, Margaret and I'll put our heads together and get on this. And so we would present, do we, now, when we go for this permit, so to speak, I guess we know, we need to know what type of paperwork, or do we just go to the next town meeting and present to you where we are in this process, or how much we've progressed since then? What is the next thing we need to?
I would recommend that once you get the plan from J&D, that you
Yeah.
presented it in a pre-application review
Okay,
and ask for a determination how the commission wants to handle it. Suggest that you handle
okay.
it. We can't prevent you from applying for a use permitted as a right non-regulated use. That is your choice. But
Well-
it's better from your standpoint, if we denied it, it would just set you off another month.
Yeah,
So-
no, I'm feeling confident in the guys I have put together. We'll get the plan together. I just want to get all our ducks in a row, have everything done, and then come in and present it and apply appropriately for this
Mhm.
permit.
So I
Yep.
think what Ms. Butts is saying is that we do not have to present it, quote unquote, at a meeting, but we can submit it
Yeah.
before a meeting and give staff time to contemplate what's proposed and give us back some feedback, and so we can come in with the final, hopefully a final version with after they
Okay.
comment.
All right, that works for me. Again, thank
Okay.
you very much.
Okay, have a good meeting. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.
Okay, do we have any other citizens' comments? This is typically going to be something that is not an item on the agenda already and is not going to be, is more shorter in nature. Is there anybody else? Okay, not hearing anything else, we'll move on to number 6, pending applications. Application 09-24-36, 120 Beaver Dam Road, map 7272, block 34, land unit 01-40, Jose Macho, repairs to shoreline.
So it looks like Dan received an email on Wednesday, October 16th. Does that satisfy the questions for additional information we were looking for?
Marla Butt speaking, it satisfies mine.
Anybody else have a comment or question?
Just a comment, the geotextile they're using is a road stabilization geotextile, and those are usually pretty strong.
If there's no further comments, I would entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make that motion. I move to approve application 09-24-36-120 Beaver Dam Road by Joe Macho for repairs to a shoreline.
Stuart Peasley, I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve application 09-24-36-120 Beaver Dam Road, Jose Macho, repairs to the shoreline, as presented with the details. Is there any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Thank you, Jose. Moving on to pending application number 2. Application 09-24-38, Route 198, map 6387, block 40, land unit 01P, Bryan Street driveway access for land for horseback riding.
Received an updated site plan and addendums for this application that are attached on the meeting page. I have the most current site plan revision on the screen presently.
So it looks like the only change is the configuration of the gravel parking area. Is that confirm what others see?
Yes, Marla Bud speaking. Yes, that's my
Yeah.
understanding.
Bill Lewinsky, you also have comments from the Wyndham Waterworks.
Oh, okay, where's that? Let's see. Okay, oh yeah, there it is. All right.
Dan, did you get the signed and sealed plans?
I have not. I've reached out to Daniel to get those in my possession.
I have
Um,
a copy of them to give to Mr. Malo. I was not aware, or I didn't read carefully enough to drop them off before this meeting.
Yeah, because, excuse me, Marla Bud speaking. The email that Daniel Blanchett said, I will drop off a few signed paper prints in the mail today with the understanding that Brian will mail or deliver them to your office. Please let me know if you need any application paperwork modified or if you have any new comments or questions. So is it exactly the same plan that we received as the addendum? The design, the driveway design plan?
That is correct.
Mhm.
I have a question about a comment at the low point. Now, if the typical driveway section at a low point, cross section that shows in the upper left, you're going to be collecting water on the, well, it just says I'm looking at it on the left side of that crossing. So there's, I don't see any provision for getting the water across, unless it's just going to be intended that it might be very wet at some points.
Daniel Blanchett didn't mention that to me. So I don't believe, are you talking about, so the left-hand side of the driveway, the way it pitches down like that?
At the low point there will be on the left side as you're looking at it.
Correct.
That would be the north, that would be the north side.
More the west side of that bend,
Okay.
right there where the cursor is there.
Where it meets 198?
No. The bend in the middle of the drive,
Oh,
The real
Right where
sharp
the cur-
corner.
where the cursor is. Because water is coming down that hill.
I'm sorry, I can't see where
And-
the cursor is on my side.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
And it's going to collect on the left side or the west side of that built area, that, what do they call it? What's the top called? The
It's the
section
area
at the
where
low
they're
point.
filling it's the area where they're filling where you'll be filling the wetlands.
With the
Yeah.
tailings and whatnot.
Yeah.
Do you have a suggestion for that, or are you just trying to warn that there will be an area of wetness there? Is that something that has to be mitigated, I guess is my question?
I do have a question. You sound calling it tailings. Are those roadway millings?
No, he he describes in the plans to use tailings, like large stone.
I don't see it defined anywhere. Typically, tailings have been referencing as roadway millings, and I would really find a problem with using roadway millings where there could be a flow of water going across it, because they carry polyorganic hydrocarbons, which is known as POS, and they're considered a contaminant if they're not solidified. A lot of times, they're not recommended for using in areas where water might flow over the road. Better used to be stone, like a crushed stone,
To
as
my understanding,
opposed.
to my understanding, he did describe to me that it was going to be large stone for
Yeah,
the
well,
basin there.
yeah, I don't, I've looked at the plan and, I think there's a concern that if this gets used for something other than a horse trailer, like if you ultimately decide to build a house there, that you would need a cross culvert at that location to make sure it stays dry
Okay.
during heavy rains. So it might, if your plan at some point in time is to use this as an access way for a house, which makes sense because it's the only access for the lot. The lot has no other roadway access. So you might as well build it to a standard that it could be used that way. In that case, it should probably have a cross culvert at that location, and that should specify what tailings are or change it to whatever kind of stone base. The other thing is that's going to happen with dirt drives is they tend to rut, and the rutting will tend to run along the driveway until it can fall off the road. And sometimes that can cause a pollution problem, and you're actually filling wetlands at that location. So I don't know where the stone wall is. You see the stone wall that borders your property boundary or near your property boundary. It doesn't border it. It crosses through the property boundary. That
do.
might be the perfect location for some kind of not a basin, but a filtration area, because that road will rut over time if it's going to remain as dirt. All you have to do is look at some of the dirt roads we have, which have been topped with good gravel and stuff, and they still rut. So that might be a concern to have something there where that leak off is on the south side of the road. Those are the only two things that I saw, that I didn't, I'm not ready to approve the application, although I am ready to say that I think it's appropriate to have a driveway here, but I think you not have to driveway so that you don't have a pollution problem later on, particularly if the use changes. Like if you do decide to do a home up there, which I don't know why you would necessarily, but I think you'll have a problem going around that corner over time. It'll wash out. And I think that has to be looked at.
Sure.
Other than that, I don't have a problem with the driveway.
I guess the question would be, if we moved it farther out away from actually disturbing the wetlands, is that something that would mitigate any of that, or not?
If you can move it out so that there's no filling or alteration of the wetlands, that can potentially become a wetlands agent approval as opposed to an individual permit.
Okay. I mean, obviously, he felt as though that's probably the best way to
Well,
make that curve so gradual.
Yeah, I think he was looking at future development of the lot, so you wouldn't have to do another driveway at a different slightly location. So I think he's preparing you for future use of the property.
Sure.
And if that's the case, then you want to do it right the first time.
Yeah, I will say we don't have any plans for that.
Okay.
In any near future.
Mhm.
So I guess I'll talk with him about that. And then as far, you said a filtration system,
Some kind of, yeah, some kind of leak off the road before it hits the wetlands so that it can filter out. You know, like not a plunge pool, but because that's usually used with a cross culvert, but some kind of settling basin that allows, if the road does wash out, that when the water comes off the road, it's not going to go directly into the wetlands and put sediment into the wetlands. Are we in a, we're in, because we are in a public water supply watershed area, so those would be the two things. One, I would define tailings, change that to whatever the term is, not call it tailings, call it whatever it is, if it's a gravel or stone or you know,
Riprap,
whatever
yeah.
kind of stone with a cross culvert, and then some kind of settling hole where the leak off is on the south side of the driveway.
okay, very good.
I'm not ready to approve this application yet, but I think it is something that could move forward in the future with minor changes. I'm going to move to table application 09-24-38, Route 198 for Brian Sweet for driveway access land for horseback riding. To be tabled to the next meeting.
Second,
Motion by Marla Butts, seconded by Mark Parker to table application 09-24-38, Route 198 for Brian Sweet, driveway access to land for horseback riding. Table it to the next meeting. Is there any further discussion? All
Not
those
from
in
my-
favor? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Sorry, misspoke.
Okay. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion carries. The motion passes. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, good night. Okay, next. Application 09-24-42, 279 East Quasit Road, map 6393, block 65, land unit 156. Robert Smith, rebuild terraced retaining wall.
So we had asked Robert to relay some of the commission or the agency's concerns about the step walls. And I met with Aaron LeClaire, stonemason, who I believe is on this meeting. And
Yes,
he,
I
Aaron, we have your plan up on the screen if you'd like to speak to it at all.
yes, I addressed the questions that you had at the last meeting about the stair returns on the inside of the stairways. I think that's one of the questions that you had about how they were going to be built.
Yep.
I think
Do
we
you
had
see
a
that?
question about the last wall closest to the water body, whether or not there was a need for increased drainage behind it, whether there was sufficient drainage to reduce the forces that could be incurred during freezing thaw conditions. Because we noticed that
Yeah.
those walls were kind of bowing, they're separating, they were
They
heading
were-
heading towards the stairs.
They were. All the returns on all four tiers of the walls are going to be completely removed
Mhm.
and rebuilt new. So
Mhm.
none of those are going to be existing.
No, but how will you stop that failure from occurring again?
But the way that I build walls, they're completely solid. The base is going to be 20 inches thick. The caps, where the caps are at the top, are going to be 12-inch solid, connected to the face walls. They'll all be interconnected solid masonry.
So these
There
will all
can
be
be a
concreted in
floor-
place?
Yes. Yes, it's going to be completely built with concrete, stone as a face, but the whole interior is going to be solid masonry, concrete.
Concrete. So basically concrete walls.
Yes.
Are you gonna
Yes,
have any
with a
weep
stone
holes?
veneer.
Are you gonna have any weep holes at the base of the stairs?
No, in front of each one of the face walls, running the length of the face wall to the swales on each side of the property, there's going to be a 4-inch perforated pipe.
Ah, okay. I don't think we saw that in the drawings.
I think that I put it in my first drawing that you had in the first meeting.
All right, let's take a
It
look at
should
that.
be in there. Each one of the walls is going to get a full length of pipe from corner to the end of the wall, and it's going to drain into the existing swales that are on both sides of the properties for the property drainage.
Okay, your cross section, which was shown on the original application, does
Mhm.
show the crushed stone footing, but it doesn't show the weep hole. It doesn't show the perforated pipe.
Oh, well, I left that out. I apologize.
So that's your plan, is to put in perforated pipe along the toe of each of those
Yes.
walls? Okay.
Yep. Just before the cap, with filter fabric over the top of it.
Yeah, gotcha. I think that should address the concern that we had, but I think the plan should reflect those perforated pipe. So I would have no objection to Dan processing this as a wetlands agent approval, provided he receives a revised cross-section wall to show the perforated pipe, for the typical cross-section.
I can do that tomorrow and bring it into his office.
How does anybody else feel about that?
That was my main concern is, what happened with the water behind the walls. Anybody else have any comments? I would imagine,
One question.
you're gonna be pumping the concrete in there?
No, we're gonna be placing it in. There'll be no machinery on the job site other than to bring the materials to the top. We're going to bring all our materials down to the work site with a big chute, because
Okay.
there's no machinery access. I can't get a machine in there. The grade is too steep to even work
Well, you
with.
could pump it, but it would cost a fortune.
Yeah. No, we build as we go.
Yeah.
We'll build the stonework, and then we'll build in back of it solid, and we'll build it as we go. It's built that way.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
A lot of handwork, unfortunately, on this job.
Yep. Any other further questions from anybody?
So I would move that application 09-24-42 for 279 East Quonset Road by Robert Smith to rebuild terrace retaining walls be processed as a wetlands agent approval subsequent to the receipt of a revised cross-section of the wall showing the perforated pipe to be placed behind the wall.
I'll second.
Seconded by Stuart Peasley to process application 09-24-42, 279 East Quonset Road, Robert Smith, rebuild terrace retaining wall to designate it as a wetlands agent approval pending the update of the cross-section of the wall. Is there any, to indicate the perforated pipe and drainage? Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Yeah, good night.
I'll get that drawing to him tomorrow. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Moving on to number 7, new applications. You have application 10-24-47, 11 Laurel Hill Drive, map 7272, block 34, land unit 0F31. Daphne Smith Naylor, fire pit and patio, and replace timber steps in upland review area.
This is a wetlands agent approval type application that I haven't had a chance to review and approve. But since there is a stair element to it, I wanted the commission to kind of have a brief look at it, and if there were any concerns that you wanted me to pay attention to in my review, I'm happy to incorporate them.
There's really 2 sites on this property. There's the natural stone fire pit on one corner, and on the other side of the house, replacement of the timber steps. And one of the details has, I believe, some plantings around the steps. Okay, yeah, there's a separate sheet for that. Has creeping phlox and some other peonies and some other landscape plants, hydrangea. The one that has the stepping stones on the bottom.
where's the water course boundary? Is that identified as the property line?
The on this on-screen GIS excerpt, the western or leftmost line indicates the edge of Bungie Lake.
How close is the stone retaining wall to the edge of water proposed to be? It says scale is 1 inch equals 20 feet.
Yeah, it's tough to say with it on a computer screen. I would be measuring this out with our GIS tool and confirming it with the applicant that it's the distance that they were expecting.
Okay, because what I'm seeing from the aerial photograph, I'm looking at the second page of aerials on the application form, and it looks, I can't tell exactly where the water's edge is. It looks like it might be back. So I would suggest, I still think this could be processed as to wetlands agent approval, but I think they should be required to, prior to your approval, in the field, flag the location of the fire pit so that you know exactly where that fire pit's gonna go. Cause I can't verify that the property boundary line is at the edge of water. I can't tell if that's a
Thank you.
tree.
That's this is, and it's the quality of what I did get kind of looks much as it is on the screen. It's tough to tell with it's not a color image, and it was very washed out. But I appreciate that suggestion. That's what I was kind of looking for to kind of understand this a little better. And I think flagging it and visiting the site and having them do something recording.
Yeah, so what I would have them do is have them flag in the field the location of the fire pit. Like outline it, what the extent of the fire pit is going to be, and then add the photograph of that flagging to the application. Require that as part of the application form, so that you have evidence down the road if there's a problem with it. If it like is too close to the water or that kind of thing, you'll have a better understanding as to how close and what the extent of the land disturbance is going to be. But I don't see a problem with this otherwise. I just don't like the plans very well. They're not very clear.
Thank you, Marla.
Cross section.
Adequate.
Looking. Hold on a sec. Go back. Okay. That's the stone stairs you're talking about, right? Oh, permeable patio section.
Yeah, I don't believe we have a cross section of.
Yeah, says permeable patios cross section. It's right after the narrative.
Is there a distance requirement?
No, just as long as it's not in the water
All right.
and it's not in wetlands. But I don't know where the water's edge actually is, and that's quite the way the land drops off. I just can't tell what the extent of disturbance is. I can understand they're trying to make a flat area for the patio and the fire pit. But it's gonna,
18 inches maximum height, so anywhere. Hmm.
I think if Dan has it flagged out in the field where the patio's edge and the extent of disturbance is, and then takes a picture of that and adds it to the application and has them as part of the application, I think that would satisfy the concern I had about exactly where is this pit and patio gonna go next to the lake. Because I can't tell from the cross section where the lake's water's edge is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
not
it looks like
substantial.
they're allowing that 18-inch height differential.
Yeah, but you see the native ground? The native ground drops away real fast, according to
Yeah.
this diagram. And then it goes very flat. So I'm wondering, okay, what's there? Where's the edge of water? Is that flat spot where the wall is going to be? Is that actually a marshy area? Is it a wetland area, or is it well back from the water's edge and it just happens to be a drop off, a natural drop off, or something that was left behind when the house was built? I can't tell, but that's Dan's business as long as they're not in the wetlands or water course.
Significant disturbance
I
on the
couldn't-
water.
On the water side. Between the fire pit and the water.
Right. I can't tell where the water's edge is. As long as they're outside of the water course, Dan should be able to handle it as a wetlands agent approval.
Yeah, I'll confirm the location and get it expressed on a better drawing
Mhm.
and confirm these questions. Where is the water's edge here?
I would have them flag it in the field though, what the
Yeah.
extent of land disturbance is and where the edge of the patio is. So that you know exactly what you're getting when you issue an approval. I don't think we need to take any action or any motion because it is a wetlands agent approval application already. Correct, Dan?
Yeah, unless I might look at it on site that they are working or proposing work on the water's edge, then it changes
Correct,
the permit.
correct.
I'll confirm some of these questions. That's it makes sense, and I thank you for that suggestion to visit the site and flag it for our record. And take a photograph of it for sure. That was definitely the guidance I was looking for. I'll report this one back at our next meeting.
Okay, any further comments or questions? That we will handle that and take Move on to application 10-24-48, Route 169, approximately 1320 Route 169, map 5167, block 12, land unit 06B, Morris Lewis for W Investments LLC, new single-family home.
Okay, this one is not an agent approval. This is an individual permit on this site. This is for a new single-family home. This site plan shows driveway going through delineated wetlands and two pipes underneath. One question I am seeking an answer to is who did the delineation? I couldn't really figure that out based from the plans. But the commission would need to receive this and schedule it for a future meeting.
You mean who was the surveyor or?
Who's
The
the,
who delineated the wetlands?
who's the
Oh.
soil scientist?
The soil scientist.
It says subdivision plan prepared for Michael Schaefer and Chris Clark. Michael Schaefer's a soil scientist. But so they were looking at, looks like they were looking at a different map done in 1988. Well, I'd want to have those wetlands, if that's where these delineations came from. I noticed that the delineation is not numbered. The flags are not numbered, so we don't know if they missed some flags or not when they did it in 1988. And we don't know if there's been any beaver action in the area that might have changed the way the wetlands would be delineated, or any water course would be delineated. It doesn't look like there's a water course there. I think they need to have a soil scientist give us a report on this one. That's something I think it has to be done. That either verifies that this mapping on this plan is accurate and provide a bit of understanding as to what it, when they went out and looked at it to confirm that this delineation is correct, or if they can't do that, then they would have to do a new delineation, because I don't think we'd approve it without some kind of verification. Because that's 1988 is how many years ago?
Yeah.
30, over 30
34.
years ago.
Yeah, 36.
The other question I have is regarding alternatives. It looks like the front part of the property may have sufficient land to build a house without crossing the wetlands at all. And how did they come to twin 12-inch reinforced concrete pipes as the size? Do they have a hydraulic analysis? Because I don't know what the contributing watershed is at this location. And why did they go to twin 12 inches? Why didn't they go to an 18-inch or a 36-inch? Not sure. There needs to be more explanation on the hydraulics for the crossing.
Like 49, 195.4 to 495, I believe.
You broke up, Bill. Can you repeat that?
There's almost no pitch to those pipes, as far as I can tell, because it goes from 495.4
Mm-hmm.
on the inside to 495 on the outlet side.
Mm-hmm.
You got about 5 inches maybe of pitch in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's just for connecting the water or they actually expect some drainage there.
You don't know what the contributing drainage area is, so
Yeah,
you don't know what the volume should actually be. I think it needs more confirmation from the engineer. And why the alternative of selecting the house, to put the house, even if they were crossing the wetlands, they put the house closest to the wetland as opposed to moving it back away from the wetland system. Was there a reason for positioning the house at that particular location?
I think it's kind of a tough site with steep slopes in a lot of places.
I can see to the south. Well, is that north or south? What direction is that? Oh, this is cockeyed around. Okay, so it's to the west part
Yeah.
of the site. The western
North is,
side is
north
very
is
steep.
left. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very steep to the west on this property.
You go from steep to very steep, basically.
Yeah.
So
And that
that
may
kind
be the
of,
reason, maybe the reason why they put the house at that location is because the other might be shallow to bedrock and extremely steep and difficult to build on.
it's kind of a slot between two slopes where they're
Yeah.
proposing to go to.
But they could have moved it farther to the south. That would have been a slightly longer driveway, but there's still an area near where the reserve area is. They probably, they might have been able to slide it farther away from the wetlands rather than leaving it so close. Because you're gonna want to have a yard around the house of some sort.
Some
Well,
people do,
Some people don't too, yeah.
yeah.
I
I'll
just
reach out
wonder
to
if,
the applicant.
yeah,
To provide consideration. We didn't get a narrative with this one. So I think that is one thing that's lacking. And I'll ask them to address the considerations of the two pipes versus one larger. And if they explored alternatives in citing the
Contributing drainage
house.
area.
contributing drainage area and explain the pitch too.
Oh. Flagging
and
the
have a
wet,
soil scientist confirm the delineation.
Yep. And that can be in a report.
Yep,
Okay.
that can be in a report, if they're just confirming that these are accurate on this map. But I think an engineer is gonna have to verify the hydraulics for the pipes, though. And this was done on Archer, so they'd have to go back to Archer. What's the date of this map?
24th of October looks like.
Yeah, so they go back, who's KWP? David Smith. They'd have to go back to David Smith and ask for, since he signed it on in September. So we want a hydraulic analysis for those culverts.
Okay.
I think KWP is part of Archer.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know.
I think he bought them out, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? It's not sealed either. It's just
Hmm.
signed. Not valid unless sealed and
Sign.
what does it say? It's too tiny to read. Unless sealed. Can you read that? Like the little text down at the bottom, the bolded text underneath David's signature. Not valid unless seal is affixed here too. And you don't have a seal on that by an engineer. The plans are going to have to be signed and sealed by the engineer.
Happy to relay this list. It came in on an odd size, the site plan. And when we scale them to turn them into PDFs and I wasn't happy with what we received here, so I appreciate this detail in forming this checklist to convey to them.
So could we go back to the drawing? Is there a scale on this drawing? A one that's like a bar scale?
Yeah, it's in the above the title block there.
Yes, so but that's for the locus map. That's not for the site plan. You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Site development plan. It says that on there. There's a scale in that title box in the lower right.
Ah, I see it. Yep.
Yeah.
So it says 1 inch equals, hold on a second. So Dan, you should be able to verify if the drawing you got is the correct scale. Because they do
Yep.
have not only a bar scale, but they also have, so just use an architect's scale, engineer's scale.
And there's, yeah. 1 inch equals 30.
Yeah, so that's what it should be. And you can simply check it by looking at the distances along the property boundaries and see if they match up with the 30 scale on an engineering scale, on an engineer's ruler.
Yep.
Do you have an engineer's ruler?
Yep.
Okay, that's, I just verified if it matches. If it doesn't, then your plan should have a proper printout mix that matches the scale.
Yeah, that's something I can confirm with the paper plans that we received, and then
Yep.
if there's an issue with that, let them know that.
Further questions or comments?
We can't take an action on this anyways, so I'm gonna move. Yeah, technically it's legally received. So, I would move that application 10-24-48, 0 Route 169 by Morris Lewis for W Investments LLC for the construction of a new single-family home with a driveway crossing wetlands be accepted as received with notice that it is missing a soil scientist's determination of the wetlands boundary provided on the plan, as well as a hydraulic analysis of the cross culverts proposed and an identification of alternatives to the house location.
As well as the signing and sealing.
And that such plans be signed and sealed by the Connecticut licensed professional engineer.
A second.
All right, we have a motion by Marla Butts, seconded by Stuart Peasley to accept application 10-24-480 Route 169 at approximately an address of 1320 Route 169. Morris Lewis for W Investments LLC with requests for more information and official seals and documents as requested by Marla Butts. Hopefully, Amy, you can get all that. Does anybody have any further other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Okay, moving on to application 10-24-4962 Beaver Dam Road. Sukesh Aghara, use permitted as a right demo and rebuild front porch.
We had Sukesh on a meeting previously to rebuild the back deck of the home that he recently purchased on Bungie Lake. And when he's got either the unsafe access through the front right now, their only option, so they're timing this work to have at least one way into the house at a time. He had conducted the back porch work and wants to hit the ground running on the front porch work. The commission suggested that this might be a use permitted as of right, and asked him to present another application when the time came to replace that front porch. This front porch is on the road side of the house, and further away from the lake than the previous project.
Is the replacement approximately the same footprint as existing?
Let's see what we got.
Yeah, I don't know if he calls that out anywhere.
Doesn't look like it. I mean, it's not noted. Not noted.
I think it would be larger. Right now, he's calling it replace existing stairs and landing with covered 3-season front porch.
Well, it seems like it might be bigger.
Yeah, that would be my read, that it's larger than the present structure.
So it looks like they're putting it on a, what they call a concrete big footing.
Yeah, it's kind of cantilevered.
Yep. So it really minimizes the amount of land disturbance. But what we don't have on here is the layout in relation to the property boundaries and the regulated area.
We need a site plan.
Yeah, we kind of got something when he gave the first drawing number 1, but he didn't include the property boundaries. I can't tell if that's a property boundary that he's got there in dashed. He doesn't label it. It's not labeled. I think that's what they're trying to say, is that that's the property boundary for the lot. But I don't know where it is on the landscape. Meaning,
Yeah, we don't.
I don't know
we need-
where.
You need context, you need the boundaries, you need the road, lake.
Well, just even a printout from the GIS map
Yeah,
giving us you know, what's around it, so we can see the house. 62 Beaver Dam. That should be in the application for a use permitted as of right. I mean, at a minimum. 62 Beaver Dam.
Attempting to pull up our GIS right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got 62 Beaver Dam Road on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, our front porch is in the shade, or shadow, I'm sorry. Measure. And measuring, there's some skewing with every one of these images, but approximately 95 feet to the front foundation wall of the house.
Yeah. So I would say with the application, you need to add, they need to have added to it like a printout from the GIS application with just they can even handwrite on it in red where the porch is going to be, and
Okay.
use that as just as a locus map, and use the drawing that was done by the architect, or I'm assuming that was a landscape architect. No, construction management company. Contractor drew this up. So how many feet do you have it from the front porch to the lake, Dan? He's got it at 47. It's 47 feet and 4 inches. So it looks like he's actually done measurements. Can you measure from the center part of the deck that's towards the lake to the edge of the lake.
Sorry, it's tough to manage a bunch of shared screens. Okay, which
Take it
area were
from
you
the-
looking for me?
From the front of the deck that faces the lake
Okay,
to the center portion, central portion, right there. So that's close. And the stairs that he's gonna build are there on the side of the house. On the north side of the house. I don't see there's a
Yeah.
problem here. No, he's on the other side. That's the south side, isn't it? Towards the lake. His drawing shows the three-season porch at the front of the house, but it shows the stairs going down, which aren't there now, on the lake side. See those stairs? That's on the lake side.
Sorry, bear with me here. Oh,
See, that's those stairs are on the lake side. Those stairs.
Yeah,
They're not showing on the aerial. Is that the stairs they
no,
want
this
to
is
build?
this is the reconstructed deck that the
Right.
commission saw recently. The front porch is this northwestern side here that they're suggesting.
Did we
Um,
approve the deck and the stairs?
yeah,
Okay, so that's all covered. That's not new. So the only thing that's new in
Yeah.
here is the three-season porch.
Yep.
I don't see a problem without, based upon the plans that I saw, that this be allowed as maintenance enjoyment or residential home. Since we've already approved the deck and the stairs coming down from the deck, this is away from the lake. This is not, does the building office need some kind of sign off?
there will be building permitting. If you also see here on the parcel information here that the assessor has an image of the current
Mm-hmm.
to get some kind of context for what's being replaced or
Mhm.
proposed to be replaced. And yeah, it is
Basically,
approximately 95 feet away from the water's edge. And you guys did previously approve the porch in the backyard.
so in the picture on the left there, you're basically taking out those concrete steps
Mm-hmm.
and adding the three-season porch there.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys say three-season porch, you realize that means an enclosed attachment, right?
Yeah. He shows it on the drawing
All right.
in the application. He actually
that-
shows a diagram of it, looking at it from the side. It's sheet 4A46. Detail number 8.
Does he call it out as a three-season porch?
Yes.
Yeah,
See, there's the porch.
All right. I just
gonna
know
move-
in the code that it's called the sunroom.
No. Okay. Well, I'm gonna move to approve application 10-24-49, 62 Beaver Dam Road by Sukesh Agara for a use permitted as of right under maintenance and enjoyment of residential home to demolition and rebuild a porch on the front of the house as shown in the application form.
So we don't require any extra site plan or anything?
I don't think it needs one. This is plenty of
Okay.
detail. But I've made a motion.
Second,
We have a motion by Marla Butts, seconded by Mark Parker to approve application 10-24-49, 62 Beaver Dam Road, Sukesh Agara, use permitted as of right to demo or rebuild front porch.
As a maintenance and enjoyment of residential home.
As a maintenance and joyance of residential home. We have any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Okay, let's move on to number 8, administrative business.
So we had some current concern about clear cutting on Indian Spring Road. I issued a letter to Teresa Truong. I have not yet received a reply, but I have alternative addresses to try again. I snapped some pictures today because my previous evidence was relying on other people. I wanted to have these for our record. And I have 2 images here and a site plan, I'm sorry, 2019 statewide aerial from our GIS on the screen presently. I took these pictures from the left topmost location. This, where my cursor is in the black off the image, is the spill, is it a spillway at Bungie?
Yep.
So from the Bungie side of things, this area, all this green here is gone. And this is the current look. Here, I did note some blocks. I think that's related to a dock. But this image here, which is behind these stones or rocks, some recent stump grinding, very close to the lake's edge. And this confirms the activity that was brought to our attention. I feel due process would be to try every alternative address I can get for Teresa. And again, request her presence at the next meeting to explain what she's doing and to inform her that permits are needed for any of these types of activities that she's been conducting.
So what is
Is
the
that all
address?
open dirt?
Oh, sorry.
Is that all open dirt where the blocks are?
It kind of looks that way. I mean,
Up
there's,
to the upper left there. Yeah.
I would say, it looks like they've got some stakes out too here. So they're intending some activity.
I had conversation with someone in Bungie Lake about this, and there's I guess there's some history here. So I think we need to proceed with caution about things and just be very diligent about
In what
methodical
way? What way are your
process.
concerns, Stu? I mean, it's obvious to me there's been clear cutting of the property. There, I don't see
Yeah,
any
and
trees on the property within the
think
upland
there's-
review area.
I think there's some issues going on with various landowners. That's
that's-
about all I really
Yeah,
want
well,
to say.
that's their problem. And I think as far as, in fact, we've got the complaint from somebody who had a concern about it. And whether
Yeah.
they have litigation or not doesn't make a difference for us unless they had litigation with the town. I think there's one tree, looks like, that's left next to the house.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get into the GIS and it won't let me in.
Right by the water, even though it's low water, I mean, that's stuff can all get washed into the lake.
I guess what I'm trying to say is we don't want to get in the middle of a neighbor dispute.
My concern is that they might start doing other construction activities if they've got concrete blocks there and they've got some stakes in the ground, and if they're within 125 feet of the lake, the border of the lake.
Yeah,
It looks like the
Well,
back of the house.
they should be notified, but I just wanted to say there's things going on.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I was just gonna look to see what the assessor listed as the property owner's address. Because Dan, you said you sent it to the address of the house, but is that where the tax assessor sends, the tax collector sends the tax bills to? By the way, I've had problems with the town's GIS system. I've been having problems getting into it.
One 32 Indian Spring Road. That, for some reason, it's not letting me open up the card to the GIS right now. But the GIS information lists, that this physical address as the address for Teresa for this property. There's additional properties, that Teresa owns in town that I can try. And I believe we've had leads on Massachusetts, a Massachusetts address. For some reason, I can't open the card through here. But I can try an alternative address for another property she owns on Indian Spring Road. I'm thinking that the mail has got to go to someplace.
Did you send it certified without a return receipt requested?
No, I only sent as an inquiry.
The next one you send it with a white slip?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Okay,
this
now it's-
Truong property on also on Indian Spring has a Stoughton, Massachusetts address that I was going to try next. I can also send mail to 60 Indian Spring as well. And other enforcement matters, I've overlapped with mail to any address I can find, and you reach somebody some way. But the next round will be certified.
Yeah, it does list it as the mailing address. I was able to get into Vision and as also the CIA card, and they all give the same. So if you have another address for her other properties that she owns, try sending it with a white slip to those too.
Yep.
You can do it as a CC at the bottom, like and just say sent certified.
Yep.
So you can do one letter to multiple addresses. You just put the address down on the CC.
But it's fair to say that this constitutes a clear cut, right?
Well, there's one tree left. So it could be questionable at this point in time because it's clear cut doesn't describe what is a clear cut over what area of land. So the fact that they left one tree next to the house may make it a questionable issue from your photograph that you took. When you look at that photograph, looks like a Japanese maple right next to the house.
There's a lot of exposed soil there at the moment, then something should be done with that.
Mm-hmm. So she only has one other property that she owns, and that's at 60 Indian Spring Road.
Yeah, just
And-
right down the road from
Yeah,
that.
but that lists her mailing address, her owner's address as 36 Irwin Street in Stoughton, Mass. So she has another address, a mailing address at least given for her other property at 60 Indian Spring Road.
Yep, that's the Massachusetts one I was gonna try. I'm also gonna try just to send mail to 60 and also 132 again, certified.
The reason why I wouldn't send it to 60, because that's probably a rental property. Since it's
Okay.
not listed as as the mailing address for that property.
Okay,
So if you're gonna send something because she owns 60 Indian Spring, then send it to the mailing address for 60 Indian Spring, which is the Stoughton, Mass address.
okay. And that's all I had on that. But if anybody has any other questions they want me to explore with that one, happy to
Yep.
add
When
that.
you send the new letter,
Yep.
tell her that we're concerned about potential erosion into the lake and want to know what steps they're taking to stop siltation of the lake based upon the tree removal work.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Moving along to correspondence, Marla, Bill, and Stu have put together some ideas so far for our plan of conservation and development updates. Those comments are attached in the correspond or attachment section on the meeting page. If anybody wants to talk
Aren't we
about.
gonna talk about that at the end after the wetlands agent report, talk about the plan of conservation and development?
Yep.
Why don't we wait till then?
Okay, and Maura Roby had sent us an unpaved road stormwater toolkit from, I think it's Franklin, Massachusetts, FRCOG. Just wanted to keep us updated that they're looking for grants at NECOG, and she's working with Jim Larkin to see if they can do any maps that could but I have that attachment on the meeting page, her email and the unpaved roads stormwater toolkit, which looks pretty cool. I haven't had a chance to go through it yet. And looks like it takes a while to load. Other items of correspondence which didn't make it into this, but I'm going to send around via email is Deep's dam safety newsletter. And that's what we have for correspondence that I could include in this meeting. It's kind of slowed down correspondence wise, but we're getting to the end of the year stuff. I asked Tracy to draft meeting dates for the commissions and get kind of everybody's first look at those, the proposed meeting dates for 2025. That's an attachment on the meeting page, and I'll bring it up for us to look at there. Very few holiday conflicts, just Labor Day in 2025.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct that to 2025.
Oh,
9/1,
yes, I see that.
2025. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. It's just a draft. It's just a draft.
Yeah.
But I figure we'll have that again at our next meeting and can formalize that, and I can forward that to the clerk to get that official.
Looks good to me. I don't think we need to wait. I think we could, so we don't have it on next meeting.
Okay.
I
I
don't
can
have
amend.
a problem.
Yeah, there was a typo here, 24.
Mhm.
But I can correct that, and
Yep.
we can get that to the clerk.
Yep.
That would mean we'd have another leap year.
Right.
Already. I also included on the meeting page the most recent financial numbers for the agency and the land use office. My read of this is we've only spent from the notice line. I don't know why they haven't pulled conferences out of there necessarily. They might be drawing them from the land use line for conferences. So that when I was looking at it this afternoon, that was one question I have for finance. But I did some inspections today, and I put in for I think 30 miles on our mileage. I think that might equate to $20 when it's finally processed from that line. And because I know we should have conference dues or conference fees for Marla and Bill for the upcoming Cacklewick. Did who still needs to get reimbursed? Bill, did we get you all set with that, or?
I, I don't have any outstanding except from last year, but I'm not worried about anything.
Okay.
I mean, I am registered, so I got confirmation
Yeah, I think I
emails.
registered. I think I might have registered in your behalf with
Yeah,
so there is no reimbursement for you. Marla, were you
I
looking
paid
for-
and I will ask for reimbursement. I will provide him with a copy of my canceled check.
Okay,
So I'll submit that to you
okay.
because I made an additional donation instead also. So I didn't want that on the, I didn't want to have that confused with my request for reimbursement for the conference.
When is the conference?
I believe it's the 16th.
16.
Oh, yeah,
Saturday the 16th
in Bristol.
Yeah.
in Bristol. And if you haven't checked out at least the website, you can see what the Cacklewick is all about. It's the Connecticut Association of Inland Wetlands and Conservation Commissions. They host an annual conference. I believe this is the 50th annual. They produced a newsletter called The Habitat for a very long time in a print form, but I haven't seen a print form Habitat in a while. But they do periodically upload one every quarter on the Habitat DEEP newsletter webpage, newsletters webpage. I'm sorry. No, on their webpage. DEP has its own host of other newsletters, also if you're interested.
Hey, Dan, I do have one question regarding the expenditure report.
Yep.
So they have land use contractual services, $45,000.
Yeah, I
And
think that's
They said they expended that, but they had amended it so that they have 5,000 still in the books. If they need to do something for the plan of conservation and development to upgrade those maps we talked about, do you know if they could use it for that? That 5,000 that's left over?
I think the 5,000 that's left over was earmarked for a POCD expense. I think that the original line of 45 is related to the salary that we contribute to NECOG for the planner services.
Right, that's what I figured that was for. Yep.
But that 5,000, I believe, is a POCD.
Okay. Well, at least it's going in the right direction.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
oh, no worries. And aside from that, I have an agent report. Let's see. I think we were at permit number 102449. Yep. So we've had quite a few applications this year. This is the highest number we've had in the past decade. There were 4 agent approval applications, which we showed on the screen last month, or 3 of which we showed on the screen last month. One was the driveway resurface at Roseland Park, which I issued a permit with 8 conditions. We have.
Could you update us on the conditions?
Yep. Let me pull my email up here. So I don't know if it should be on your screen. Some of them are typical. That this will be published in the Woodstock Villager, appealable 15 days from the date of publication.
When was that? When was the date of publication?
Sorry, juggling.
So I think when you issue approvals like this in your report, what I would appreciate is if you've issued a wetlands agent approval and you've gotten a publication for the notice so that we know what the when it was published and that when the appeal period ended to verify that we're not going to see any appeals.
I can pull up the Woodstock Villager for you real quick, but I have everything in the folder.
I would like it for future reference in your wetlands agent report. I don't know how other people feel, but if we've reviewed things at the wetlands meeting and we had some questions or concerns and had some suggestions, then for all those actions that you took, I would like to know what those actions were, meaning what the permit, when it was issued, when the legal notice was issued, when the appeal period ended, so that we can verify that we didn't get an appeal. And that the legal notice was properly, published. We don't have to see the legal notice. We don't have to. I like seeing the wetlands agent approval because then when you used to put them in the regular agenda, when you issued them, we could actually look at your approval. That was handy for us to look at. That still didn't tell us. The agenda would tell us when it was published, and when the appeal period ended. But I didn't see that for that one, and we had a lot of concern about the part.
This appeal period ended last Friday, and I'm so I mean I understand. I know that I've sent it and what my spreadsheet says when I sent it and when the appeal period is cleared, but I should also communicate that
To us, right?
Yeah. Loading up the Woodstock Villager, but for some reason it's quite slow right now.
So one question I noticed after, we had our meeting last month on this one was that their 20-foot wide paved areas were basically looked like a perimeter road, even though they had identified walking trails as 20 feet wide. Were you able to distinguish on the application form how they were able to make sure that something stayed as a walking trail and did not become a travel way? We didn't talk about that at the meeting.
I didn't introduce that limitation. I mean, if something was, I didn't see it- the issue with that.
Well, if they
So-
start using and parking vehicles next to the lake at the 20-foot wide pedestrian walkway,
Yep.
what's to stop them from using it as a travel way as opposed to a pedestrian walkway? There's nothing other, once it's built, it's built. And their use of it at something else, we would have to then show that there's pollution occurring from that's not authorized.
I
It'll be a
think,
little,
one of the conditions kind of puts a check on that. Not necessarily limiting, what the use of the road is, but, monitor and self-report, changes to, surface drainage. Um, I think I can easily have a conversation with the applicant, about changes in the use of the road from pedestrian to, vehicle,
Travelway.
regular vehicle travel again
Mhm.
should be, brought to the Wetlands Commission for their consideration.
I'm
I
just
don't
saying, I
think
don't
this,
think we have any jurisdiction. Once it's built, unless there was a condition on the permit that it could only be used as a pedestrian walkway, we don't have any, technically, you don't have any jurisdiction unless we can prove that it's polluting the lake, which they didn't get an authorization for.
I think they wanted to keep the possible, emergency vehicles. I haven't attended any of their trunk or treats or food truck festivals. I don't really know how they use the roads in the park, but I didn't want to, limit the amount of space, from what they might have previously to do those activities with
Mhm.
but, I did speak with Mark Contnoir today. He had zoning questions about the golf course, but we also talked, that he had walked the property with Jean Pillow, and she suggested some, um, drainage, certain types of drainage controls when future projects are proposed. I don't think they're done with their ideas that are going to be in the upland review area. I think, we might see future applications, and we can, I mean, probably, incorporate into that changes from, um, as you're saying, changes from, a pedestrian walkway to the, regular vehicle travel should be reflected in any of the kind of drainage, controls that they implement.
So you do expect them to be coming back in with future projects?
Yeah,
Okay,
the ideas that him and, Gene talked about in the field, you don't want to convolute the approval that they have. He said the approval's sacrosanct, and any, other things he's gonna be back.
okay, okay.
The only thing I'm gonna point out here is, looking at one of their packages from the last meeting, it says, it shows on the map pedestrian zone with the pedestrian only walkways. It says pedestrian zone, roads may be open to vehicular traffic for special events. So if they had the food trucks or something, then they will probably be within that pedestrian zone. But regular vehicular traffic will be restricted.
So I would
Yeah.
encourage them to coordinate with the Conservation Commission regarding any future projects that they do to make sure that Conservation Commission finds what their proposal is gonna work for the best that Conservation Commission feels it should.
Absolutely. I think, they needed, certain members probably needed to be walked around and discuss some of these proposed changes, long ago. And, so surprised it kind of took this long, for the two parties to meet in that kind of way. And I think going forward, the applicant knows that, that the Conservation Commission could be a good partner.
Mhm.
And I think these kind of lumps that came out of this will probably lead to a better working relationship going forward.
That's all I ask, that they coordinate with them.
That's the Conservation Commission should coordinate.
Yeah, the Roseland Park Association should coordinate
Oh.
with the Conservation Commission regarding any changes that they're making, because they're the ones who raised all the concerns to us. You know, regarding the extent of paving and stuff like that. And if you recall, at last month's meeting, Dan had not even had a chance to look at the addendum that had been added. The one that detailed all the paving areas and stuff like that. It had come in like at 2 or 3 in the afternoon before the
Right.
meeting. That was not sufficient time for the commission to kind of chew it over to talk about what the concerns of the Conservation Commission were. So in the future, hopefully the Roseland Park Association can get everybody in lock sync with what they're doing so that we don't have that happen again. I mean, we may have
Okay.
our own issues, but they clearly raised some concerns, which we had turned over to Dan.
I think it was a case of the Roseland Park Association not realizing the bigger picture of what might need to go into this approval,
Mhm.
because it kind of came about at last minute, and they didn't know that they needed to go through all this, or didn't anticipate they needed to go through this. So it's something that they came across and learned that they need to do something, and so now they should be further forewarned.
Mhm. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome. Let's see. So we had also a breezeway that the commission had a glance at on Trip Road, and then Robert Page came through last month to modify the dimensions on his approved garage. We processed that administratively. One that wasn't on the commission's agenda last month was a free-floating deck at Beaver Dam Road. And I had approved that after back and forth with the building official on this free-floating thing here. We had Daphne Naylor Smith's application for 11 Laurel Drive earlier, that fire pit and replacement of the timber steps with stone. Be able to look at that this week with the comments that the agency had provided that I wrote down here. Don Gagnon joined us on the meeting to discuss Solaire. And thank you for that. Indulging that time during citizens' comments. One question I have is, would a preliminary review, would you like that on as an agenda item?
If they present one in time to put it on the agenda,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay. I didn't know if we should have created an agenda item for the conversation they had last night.
The one we had tonight with,
Yeah.
put it under administrative business
Okay.
as a separate item, as a pre-application review.
Okay.
One comment I have on that, Dan, is, well, I could wait till citizens' comments, but I'm just thinking if we could make sure that we put a time limit on the citizens' comments, because like last month and this month, the opening citizens comments lasted half an hour, and we
Sure.
probably should notify the prospective applicants that we've got a time limit for that, maybe 5-10 minutes max.
Okay.
What do you think? What does everyone else think?
I'm with you there.
I think
Yeah.
if it's something that you think is gonna take a long period of time is to put it under administrative business.
Yeah.
If it's not, if it doesn't have a specific application pending, but it's something that somebody wants to discuss and you know it's gonna be long and detailed, like the roads, the dirt roads, that should be under administrative business, not citizens' comments.
Yeah.
Because that administrative business is wide open as to how you want to put the issues in.
But just so I don't know, I guess it would be up to Bill, or who's running the meeting, to say, we're watching the clock, and even that administrative businesses isn't just going to go on for an hour and a half,
Kind of hard once you open the door and start talking about things. It can just easily get sidetracked and
Yeah. So we should be aware of it, that we should.
that was the danger of putting a citizens comments period at the
Yeah.
beginning of the meeting also.
I think
Maybe we
we've
just
we've
say,
found the. Oh,
we
we
could
found
just
the
say,
fix.
listen, we could just say, listen, we're going to be limiting this to 5 minutes.
Most, I know other planning and zoning commissions and wetlands commissions do limit to 5 or sometimes to 3 minutes. And
Yeah.
they're limited only to items on the agenda.
Okay.
And if they want to talk about something that's not an item on the agenda, then they should talk to Dan about getting an item put on the agenda under administrative business.
That would be the protocol. Yeah.
And
Makes
then they have to
sense.
wait to the end of the meeting and not hold everybody else up.
Right.
At
So,
the same time, you can give them a spot on the agenda, whereas if they're coming in for citizens' comments, they have to either catch the first one or the last one. If they have a spot on the agenda, they can kind of prepare accordingly. I think that's a good check for those long questions that we get under citizens' comments that we should explore getting them on the agenda with either a preliminary discussion and have that under administrative business.
Mhm.
Thank you. Last month, the commission, the agency, I'm kind of scattered right now. Investigated inquiries about 85 Loyola. This was the property that had a shed that was built right up on the property line, violating zoning regulation, and it was placed in the upland review area without a permit. We got Mr. Chesnicki in after the fact for his permitting, and the commission was wondering about the siting of the house. Does the foundation has there been encroachment? So I looked, found a wetlands permit. Attorney Stephen Adams was the original permit holder for the wetlands permit here. It was transferred to the present owner after he purchased the property in June of 2020. Zoning permits were issued a few months after that, and the building finally got its CO in November of 2021. The side yard requirements in the Lake District at the time of its approval were and still are 10 feet. The foundation as-built drawing by J&D dated January 22nd, 2021 confirms that the structure is 20 foot from the front yard and the side yard. It matches the regulations and it matches what I was able to measure. So I don't believe there's been any encroachment there. I did see in older GIS map sets that the lot was once two separate lots, 147 and 148, and the foundation on lot 148, which abuts 89 Loyola, where people where we felt there was encroachment. That house was previously right on the front and side property line. The foundation was on the property line. So the present large house that is on the combined parcel meets the current zoning requirements, whereas the previous was non-conforming. And it's funny that we talk about this because all I receive these days in the office is inquiries about how can I tear down, what do I need to go through to tear down number 89, which is on the market right now. So I think whoever gets the property right next door to this one at 85 is going to be looking to build bigger than the little cottage that's there now. And we'll be eventually be seeing a tear down and rebuild for a single family home at 89 next to this one. So it's I mean, I on top of the commission's inquiry, I had neighbor inquiries of, seeing as it was listed, the property values of the blue house are and I kind of did this research and communicated, that this was the previous home was non-conforming. There has been no encroachment, and we can't really control people's want for larger homes if they fit within the regulations. And then that this is a trend everywhere to tear down little cottages and rebuild to the max. But that I found 85 compliant and unfortunately 89 is going to be torn down and rebuilt, with the concerns of the neighbors, about that. But it is a smaller lot, number 89 than 85. So I don't think we can really get a mansion after tear down, but we'll have to see what's being proposed. That's my number one inquiry of the so far this week. I've had a few today on it about nobody wants to keep the blue house there. So some of the neighbor concerns about the crowding of the blue house are kind of washed away. Did anybody have any other questions about number 85, the large house that had the shed that was in the wrong spot? Okay. Aside from that, I think Tracy and I are catching up from our time away from the office. She was out over in England for a week. I was out at Casio the 21st through the 25th. That's Connecticut Association of Zoning Enforcement Officials, I'm sorry. That was the second of two sessions. After I get my results from that, passing grade is eligible to write a capstone report about zoning enforcement action I've taken in town. That exhibits that I've followed all the proper course of sending or conducting enforcement. A lot of my enforcement in town has been informal. There's the possibility that I can draw upon previous experience from another town where I have, thick files. But I'll be talking with people who have done this capstone report recently to see how to best approach this report, and I hope to wrap up Casio by the end of the calendar year. And I will be out of the office actually next week, kind of the vacation from the vacation. But we have Monday off for Veterans Day holiday. I'm having to shift around a date to attend the the Cackaway Conference on the Saturday. So it made sense to just use 2 personal days in the middle of the week and have a staycation where I can get some chores done and I have a never-ending to-do list. So it's kind of that now's the time. But I will be close. I told Tracy if things are urgent, she can text me. But Casio, I really couldn't be involved in the office when I was away for that because you can't keep your phone out in class. We brought up the 2025 meeting calendar. I will send that over to the clerk after just a little tiny edit. And if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to research or comment. I wasn't able to reference my notes from the last meeting to prepare this, so I don't know if there's something that I might have missed. But I will be able to reference those notes and get back to you on anything that I did when I'm back in the office. And
Thank you, Dan.
yeah, thank you. And then we have POCD. Would anybody like their notes on the screen? We've got Bill supplied some new notes. Stu, in his role as chair on the Zoning Board of Appeals, drafted some notes for them, but some of them cross over if you have a read. And I think should deserve, can fit in with what we supply to the Planning and Zoning Commission. But
One thing also, in addition to that, I have several layers that I'm thinking of, Dan and the rest of the commission agency. We function as a regulating agency. The IWWA is the only one that actually has a legal term associated with regulations. But beyond that, I think that we have a great opportunity to sort of take a positive role in the community with what the Wetlands Commission or agency can provide in terms of educating the public. The POCD plan talks about culture and nature, and within that context, that's where they are expecting our input. And unfortunately, people don't look at wetlands as a reserve, as a value, as something that really contributes tremendously to our community. Basically, it's not expedient to their wishes to develop their property. Their real estate is far more important. So that's an example, a case study of culture and nature, where I think that one way we can address that is to emphasize the beauty, just not alone the value of the wetlands to the ecosystem, but the beauty of it. So my question is to all the members here, if anyone has any suggestions as to what wetlands area constitutes something worth visiting, something that's really beautiful or significant in some way. I know I go often down Old County Road in Woodstock Valley over by Chamberlain Mill, and it's one of the best views in the town, in my view. But you guys know where anybody else have been on Old County Road?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The Nature Conservancy, I think, owns that marsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Yale Forest abuts it as well.
Yeah. One of the
So-
big things people don't realize is that wetlands are water filters.
Yeah.
So that's where you get your fresh water from. It looks awful, might smell awful, but it's filtering the water for you.
So, one of the things that Dan put up was Bill's introductory comments. Now, Bill, I sent to you late in today a reply to your comments. And I put a lot of comments in it, answering some of the questions that you had. Dan, you don't have it because when I did my reply, I couldn't figure out how to do reply to all. So Bill's the only one who got it, but I can screen share. That's that document, but it's got comments on it. And so it might be helpful for me to screen share.
Yep.
My,
Do you,
my, or Bill
do you have
can.
that?
Well, I haven't looked at your reply yet.
Okay,
So if you could screen share it.
okay.
And
So
that was just the basic start to throw
Yep.
things out. And it has, you can change it completely or say it's totally irrelevant or whatever.
no, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
But I fleshed out the questions that you had with, all of the pieces that you were looking for, research or references or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if you don't
Marla,
mind,
do
Dan,
you have the, no, do you have the,
Yep,
the green
I
button
got
at
it
the
up.
bottom? Okay.
so I will click screen share and then I will go to, first thing I wanted to go to is, this is from the state's draft plan of conservation and development. And they identify different areas: healthy people and places, stewardship of resources, thriving economy, housing for current and future residents, connected and exclusive communities. And they all overlap in different ways. But the one that's in the center, climate change, that affects everything. So I've been trying to focus on how the document, the information that I supply will somehow relate to climate change, because that seems to be at the central portion of the issues. So I want to change the screen. So how do I do that? Do I just alternate to another screen?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So here's what Bill put in, and every place that I have is comments, because he was saying that Woodstock is a large area and he put it in acres, but it's actually 6.18 square miles. And that's according to the Connecticut Register and Manual on page 406. And I give this to Amy for, if you want, Amy, I can forward it to you if you want it for your purposes, because these are all the references that I took, where I got them from.
Marla,
We're not seeing you.
are you working with multiple screens?
Yes, fine. What are you seeing now?
We still see the state's,
Okay, let me
Venn
close that out.
diagram.
Close current tab. Yep. What are you seeing now?
Buffered community water
community.
supply.
Okay, so I'm gonna shrink that down. And that's, what are you seeing now? Are you seeing my
Same thing.
comments to Bill's?
Nope.
No,
Oh, well, let me stop. You says your screen sharing is paused. All right, let me see. Okay, I gotta close that down then, or I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna reshare something else. That's Bill's. Okay.
Yeah, and isn't the land area of Woodstock 60 square miles, right? 60?
62.
61.8. That was
Yeah,
according
61.
to
Yeah.
the Connecticut the blue book,
Yep.
Yeah.
Connecticut. That was the 2023 version.
Aren't we the second largest town in the state?
I don't know.
Yes,
I heard we were.
I think
We
the
are.
left-
New Milford is the first.
the largest, right? Yeah.
And
large.
then I think third may be Weathersfield. I'm not sure, but anyways, so that answered that question. But then, Bill, when you were talking about there's a small collection of homes and businesses in South Woodstock that are supplied with water supply services provided by the town. But guess what? There are 10 community well systems. And I'm going to stop screen sharing and I'm going to pull up all the 10 ones that are there. I did an Excel spreadsheet. I took them from the from the Department of Health. These are all the what they call buffered community water supply systems in Woodstock. And I would think that this should be in the POCD as piece of the information, because there's 10 of them. Some of them are
Street is
just
spelled
apart.
wrong.
Hmm?
Beach Street is spelled wrong.
I took
Dug
it
Hill Road.
exactly,
Dug Hill Road is
exactly
wrong.
as it came from the state,
Yeah.
the health department. So anyways, so I'm gonna
DOTD.
stop screen sharing that. And Bill,
Yeah.
you have this Excel spreadsheet, or actually it's a PDF file, I think, that I sent email to you. But if you want, I can forward it to these two documents to Dan. These are the only two that I had. And I'll share back to Bill. All right, sorry for this. Share. Okay. So I think that since it was not quite correct, I'm suggesting that there are 10, that you just replace that language that's in the comment in the pink with the language that I have there. That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
To
The
identify
point I
the
was
10.
making there is, the point I was making there is there's only one municipal water supply that serves a small area, and the rest are local, small. uh, The point was that there's not really a municipal water supply that serves the town. It
No,
just
there
serves
isn't.
the small.
Correct. But I think identifying the fact that there are 10 small systems that supply various parts of the town is of value, because that means protecting our water resources are not just for the town of Putnam, but for these
Yeah.
other 9 others that are,
Yeah.
small, services. And then you
And it-
identified 3 different municipal water supplies. I could only find 2. Maybe you can tell me what you saw.
Right.
The only 2 I found was the Wyndham Water Works and the Putnam Water Pollution Control Authority.
I haven't gotten an official map or anything from Southbridge, I believe, yet.
Yeah, no, we don't have one from a map on file from Southbridge, but
So they have a public water supply that,
Yes, a
so
big one, actually.
did the application that we looked at for dredging that pond tonight, is that part of that public water watershed?
I don't believe so. That Lebanon Brook drains way down to what they call Sandersdale in Southbridge, where McDonald's is.
Mm-hmm.
Around the corner a little bit, the Simsack machine, that's part of that Lebanon Brook, and it meets the Quittebog River a little bit downstream there. But
Well,
all the other water supply is up Hatchet Pond, up by Bigelow Hollow, and that feeds that whole section there, the Quittebog Highlands section. So it's kind of the western part where Southbridge meets Sturbridge.
So
The
the only
southwest
reason why I
corner.
would list out what the municipal water supplies are, by name, so that
Yeah.
people would know. Because look, I didn't even think of Massachusetts. Of course, who
Yeah.
cares about Massachusetts, right? No, I'm only joking. I'm only joking. All right, then the next one that you had is you were talking about atmospheric moisture in the past, and you wanted a reference to where it's been documented. So it's in
Yeah.
a publication called one of them, there's many, but the one I thought was the best was Nature Publications, Volume 11, article number, and that gives a number. And I found that through various sources. It was on NOAA, it was on NIH, it was referenced. So if you take a look at that link, you'll find a lot of information about the moisture rivers that are, the higher moisture content and what it's doing. And then the rise in sea levels, that was by NOAA. That document that they've got in there, they have a lot of detailed information about global sea level rises across the world. Now, DEP probably has some information about what's going on in Long Island Sound, but that doesn't really affect us. I think doing a global, saying it's not just us, it's everywhere, might be of value.
Marla,
And-
was that you that was saying you preferred climate resiliency? I had some,
I-
was that you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one of the things is that we need to have in Woodstock, need to have a goal for is climate resiliency. And that involves a lot of things. That doesn't just involve maintaining wetlands for their flood storage capacities and their water filtration capacities, because Bill was focusing on water, clean water supply, and I'm focusing more on the hydrology, how it
Yeah.
can mitigate those terrific events, help to mitigate. They don't completely mitigate it, but they help to mitigate it. And as long as you have, and Woodstock is blessed with tons of wetlands all over the place. And by maintaining those, we're helping to keep ourselves resilient. But there are some other things that we need to think about too. And I'll talk about that in a moment. The next reference Bill was looking for was well, he didn't ask for it, and I gave it anyways, was about the significant rainfall events being increased significantly. And there was a really good article on EPA's site that talked about heavy precipitation and how it's rising. And then lastly, my comment was about climate resiliency. And I said that we need to have, I think we need to talk about that more too. It's not just public water supply and clean water, but we need to know about how we're being resilient. Remember that diagram that had all the circles?
Yep.
And in the center of that was climate change. So one of the big characteristics that they kind of talk about in the state's draft POCD is climate resiliency. How do you get resilient to climate change? And part of that is knowing what you have. Now, some towns, years and years ago, the town of Glastonbury did a town-wide hydraulic study. They looked at all their culverts, find out which culverts were undersized. So they knew that when they went to do some kind of work or had an application for construction nearby, whether or not they needed to mitigate the lack of adequate hydraulic structures. We have no idea here in Woodstock. What is our stormwater drainage system? What our hydraulic needs are? And so one of the things I think should be in the POCD as a goal is to look at hydraulic insufficiencies in light of the need for climate resiliency. And that might include having the town do a townwide drainage study to identify existing infrastructure deficiencies and any related deficiencies, including bridges, cross culverts, and stormwater drainage systems. But this would take a multi-phased approach with the initial mapping of the infrastructure system, followed by an evaluation of that system. And that would help us, the Wetlands Commission, to identify where sites are going to have problems, where we need to be worried about it. And I think part of that might also address some of the concerns with the dirt roads that we've had. So there's two areas that I really want to focus on a little more, which is about, the resiliency part of it is the hydrology. And I forgot what the second one was, but there was another issue that I wanted to talk about, but I'm still going to keep working through to see what I can come up with, but I have no idea what the format is going to look like, what they're looking for. I'm guessing it's wide open. Did anybody, Dan, did you get any response back from the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the state's draft plan of conservation and development?
Delia kind of brushed me off a little bit. I think she's aware. And that they intend to be compliant, but I don't know the mechanics of it.
Well,
Or,
we're already out of compliance. Because it was a 2023 POCD, correct? I believe it ended on 23.
I thought it ended 15.
15. All right, so
yeah.
25. Yeah, I think it's a 2014. Yeah, so they have to have it in effect by next year in order not to ask, but did she give any response to the need for updating the maps?
Uh, she,
Well, she might not be under contract to do that, so she's
yeah,
not gonna,
yeah. They kind of indicated that they're losing their GIS, their mapper. So I I got I would say non-answers as answers for both considerations, the congruency with the state POCD and the updates of map. And I'll broach this again, whether
well, maybe,
since
maybe
we're
not,
talking
maybe
about it
not,
again.
maybe not them doing the GIS. Maybe the people who run the GIS program for the town. Maybe they should be the ones that should be looked at to provide assistance to develop
Okay.
those. But that's gonna
Such
take
as
money, and
yeah.
I don't think that's in the budget.
No,
I mean, if you only got 5,000 for GIS, I mean, for POCD,
POCD.
if that's all you got, that's not enough to develop a new POCD.
I'll reach out to Delia tomorrow about these questions. Just
You might want to talk to Chandler about it too. See what he has
yeah,
to say.
I did mention that the statewide POCD that we would want to be congruent with what they're working on,
Mhm.
and that an extension is an option if we're not quite there with the
Mhm.
timelines.
Mhm.
But he's another one I can see if he's available tomorrow, and we could talk a little bit more about this. I think we're fleshing this out,
Mhm.
and
Mm.
I think we're wetlands is looking good to meet a target date. You know, I kind of would like a report if that's the format, for PZC by the end of the calendar year.
Mhm.
I think the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings this month, the two of them are going to be heavily focused on trying to rein in this POCD. And I'm pleased that we're working on kind of drafts and have our thoughts at least started on paper, and we're refining them. But I will reach out to both Chandler and Delia tomorrow.
So is what the Wetlands Commission needs to do is to come up with a list of potential goals to reach in the next 10 years? I mean,
I don't think they're looking for a list. They just want ideas of what could assist in putting a plan together for the future. They're looking at a 10-year vision. And so what would that consist of? I think if we are very careful and make some bullet point approach that is understandable for people, that would be most effective.
What bullet points of what, though?
What
Bullet
would
points of what the vision is, or goals, or
I think both? We need to be able to illuminate and elucidate on what it is that this resource that we are so surrounded with, but really nobody has too much awareness of it. And it's a incredible resource in terms of its scale for Woodstock alone. I mean, we talk about scale in Woodstock, the size of it, but it's also it would be interesting to know how much wetlands is in Woodstock compared to other towns. I think we have
well, I believe that information is available, but it's based on NRCS's soils data, which is
okay.
which is not it's not real explicit, but it's at least gives you an idea. And probably what I can do is I'll talk to Margaret Washburn, who used to be the chair of the Southern New England Society of Soil Scientists of America.
All right.
She used to be the one who distributed the listings of soil scientists. I'll ask her. She probably knows where that listing is. Somebody has it, because I remember seeing it years ago. And they give town by town the acreage. In fact, Thompson had it when Carolyn Wurge was alive. she actually had for Thompson, what percentage was delineating it in various soil types for the town. And I believe NRCS is the one that has it, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, the people who run the Soil Conservation Service. So I'll try to research that before the next meeting, at least.
In another way, I think we should be trying to boost ourselves on the horizon with regard to natural resources in the context of culture and nature, balancing the two. And
Well-
what's that look like?
So do you want to compare and contrast you with other towns?
I don't think so. I think that would be up to somebody else. We should just, give an analysis or a summary of what it is that we're doing in Woodstock and what we have and what it could become. And I personally think that we have an opportunity to try to invoke some vitality into, let's boost this up. Let's not look at most people, frankly, and you guys all know this, most people look at wetlands as an inconvenience.
Mhm.
It's not really something that is it's undervalued, shall we say. People don't really appreciate that. Actually, I've heard it called wetlands being called in comparison to the human body, it would be like the spleen. The
You know how
organ.
valuable the spleen is?
Without the spleen, we're not,
That's where
We
all the white blood cells get trained to how to fight different organisms and different viruses and stuff.
so
Very
that's-
valuable.
So
Yeah.
I'd like to jump in here with a couple things. Stuart, there's a little bit of a difference here between two things. One is that what we do as wetlands and what the Conservation Commission does. If you go to the Kakiwick conferences, Janet Brooks often starts a session it says, how many people are here to join wetlands to save wetlands? And people raise their hand and say, no, that's not what you're doing. You're here to implement the statute, and it's the statute that saves the wetlands. So it's through our sort of legislating the statute that we are able to do what we do. But the Conservation Commission has more of the input on specifics of ideas, or should have more of the input on specifics of ideas. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
yeah, no,
to-
that's interesting. I just think from our perspective, we experience through the regulation process, we experience, the practicalities of those policies and what it's intended to do. And I think that it would be, incumbent upon us to merge that practicality with the theoretical.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
we'd be very. It would be very that would produce a vitality that I think would be beneficial to the community.
So one thing I would suggest doing is reading the public policy given in the state statute in section 22A-36. That's the stated legislative public policy on wetlands and watercourses. It's pretty explicit, but what we're doing with the Plan of Conservation and Development is trying to guide other commissions also and other activities in the town to help our job be easier, as opposed and to do the kinds of things that well, legally we have a responsibility to do. There are other people that are doing things that don't have that guidance, like the zoning map. The zoning map, you could have a zoning map that doesn't match with what your resources, your natural resources are, or what your cultural resources are. And I thought that's what the Plan of Conservation and Development was supposed to help do, was to guide that kind of activity. If they say somebody wanted to put in an industrial zone, in Woodstock. There is actually a very small industrial zone in Woodstock. If you've looked at the zoning map, everything is almost
Yes.
completely rural residential. But if somebody wants to put another zone in, where would you put it, and what kind of zone would be acceptable given the resources that you have? It gets real complicated because the Little River is Putnam's public water supply. So you really want to put your industrial lands where you have a public water supply, or can you put it in a way so that it bypasses that? I mean, do you have the resource to be able to do that? Because so much of the land is in public water supply to begin with, but not all of it. Where are the areas that you can focus on? Then we have farmland that we want to protect and save because that's a real cultural value. And it's also a value to the wetlands too. Because as long as it's in agriculture, it's not going to be in houses. It's not going to be in other kinds of development. But that's somebody else's job to deal with agriculture. It's not Wetlands Commission.
Right. No, I'm just trying to, my understanding is that's the context of what we've been asked to provide, this
Okay.
Culture but culture and nature have to exist. And I think right now the priority is culture. And my point is that we've got to bring the priority of nature up higher. And whether it's conservation or wetlands, maybe they can do it together, but it has to be much more of a priority than an inconvenience towards development.
But to do that, you need to have the data. And the
Yeah.
data that we have from the old plan of conservation and development is outdated. It's
Yep.
not accurate anymore. And some of those layers could be part of the GIS system.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering whether or not that's part of the component that we should be looking at, saying that we should be buffering up or improving our GIS data layers to make sure that we have the kinds of information to make the kinds of decisions that they're asking, not just for us, but for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Can we get that through or assistance or involvement with Yukon Clear?
A lot of this stuff comes from Clear, but you got to have the data in. Like, for example, we don't really know what lands are in 490 anymore. That's over 10 years old. And who's going to pay for the updating of that? We don't have a full-time assessor so maybe one of the things is to make sure we have the adequate staffing to be able to discharge the duties that we have given to us, even though many of them are not unfunded state mandates, like the wetlands law. Planning and zoning is not an unfunded state mandate. You don't have to have planning and zoning in town.
Right.
And there's no public policy for planning and zoning. So somehow there's going to have to be dedication of funding to make this plan good to begin with and to work.
We've got to make that point up front. That should be part of this discussion. That should be part of what we present.
So that if you take a look at, say, Thompson just did their plan of conservation and development about 3 years ago. Take a look at the kind of mapping they put in their plan of conservation and development. And I'll bet you we don't have anything near that. And that's going to take money to do.
That would take money to hire professionals, or could we get students to do that? Or
you might, but if you don't have an assessor to give you some of the basic information, like who's in 490, that's the assessor's job. I can't remember, what were the other maps that I listed? I had listed like 3 maps that needed to be updated. We know the FEMA maps are going to be updated soon. Does anybody remember? It's off the top of my head. I can't remember what the maps were, but there were, I think, 3 of them.
Wetlands layer.
Yep.
Wetlands layer.
That easily is developable.
Topo and superficial geology.
They're all available. Those are all available at Clear. That you can download those in shape files. So somebody who knows how to do that can develop those maps for the POCD.
Okay, so I think our vendor was able to get us those contours on our GIS, just telling them, pointing them where to get the map set. I think they probably can implement that for a small fee. Those others, but as Marla said, the PA 490 list, that's something that the assessor would produce. I feel like there's other, I think, so Rebecca Hyde, has been working with agriculture, with a grant that they applied for and received to, I think, map our conservation, easements
Your open
and,
space areas?
yeah.
Mhm.
So I think there is some work to that. I see her around the town hall maybe once a week. I will catch her to see where her progress is with that and if that's something that is intended to be incorporated into the POCD. But some of these maps might be low-hanging fruit to get into our GIS. To produce an ARC GIS, big, huge plan-sized map, I think without the resources of NECOG to do it, would be a challenge in time and expense that I don't
Well,
know if we need.
I think most of them are shape files, which mean they wouldn't be having, they still have to have a GIS person who knows how to get the shape layers from clear. Or say like the urbanized areas. I mean, there are some minor urbanized areas in Woodstock that almost put it into the MS4 licensing or permitting requirements, but it was exempted because I think of the size of the urbanized area. So some of those, knowing whether you have an urbanized area in your town from the census would be of benefit too, of having a map of that. I don't know, they have it online, but I don't know how it would be assembled to put it onto just for the town of Woodstock. So there's a number of maps I think that should be in the plan of conservation and development. And maybe that's one of the things that we can come up with is a listing of maps we think that should be included to go along with the narrative to say which direction the town is going in and figure out what they don't have, what they need to find funding resources to gather. This is a lot more complicated than just doing a questionnaire and asking,
Oh,
how do
yeah,
you feel about this or that?
exactly.
If you want nature in there, you're going to have to get data.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
So that's
So,
our response. And yeah,
Another possible way of looking at it too is stating, going back to a lesson plan of the type that we used in elementary methods. You would start with a behavioral objective, and through the use of blah, 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 the student would learn or be affected this way, and you would get these outcomes using these materials. So perhaps that something along those ideas might be a way to organize some of this also.
where did you get lesson planning from? Were you a teacher?
Yeah, I was for a little bit.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
So I know
Yeah,
nothing
but
about that
I
skill set.
I actually have some, yeah, I did some teaching as well. So I have some materials that would be perhaps useful for that, just getting organized, putting an outline together.
Hmm.
That's good comment, Bill.
I was thinking of it more like strategic planning. And I had a
Well,
little,
but it is, but I think that one thing I'm trying to say is that this is an educational process. We've got to educate the community about this.
then you got to get it down to a 6th grade level,
Exactly.
maybe even 4th grade now. I don't know.
Well, in the elementary methods, especially, you would put goals based on Piaget's principles. You would have cognitive, affective, and psychomotor input, activities that you would expect to get out of your lesson plan. So that's where the behavioral objective and the specific goals come out, and then you would list your materials to get them.
So that kind of dovetails in with what the state's plan of conservation and development is, because they talk of a three levels of organization of the plan. Then they talk about principles, and I can't remember, there was like a little chart that they had. I'm sorry I don't have it up. But I'll think about that a little more. Maybe I'll communicate if you can. Where would I look to find that kind of layout? This lesson planning. I could look at it online if I Googled something like lesson planning for elementary school.
There would be probably so many different types or formats that would probably boggle your mind.
Okay.
I could just try to look up in my notes and see what kind of resources I have. And some way I could present that and scan it and email it to you.
Okay. Well, I thought your introductory comments were really good. But I just thought it needed a little more on climate resiliency.
Yeah,
And other than that, I thought it was a good start, because I think it explained why we're going in the direction we're going in.
yeah.
And so how do you want to handle this next month then? Do you want to come back with some ideas? More ideas? I need more guidance. I'm really not understanding how they're going to pull this thing together as to what they're looking, how it's going to be a guidance document for the future.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I have the same question, but because I think that it is very idealistic, and I'm concerned. One of my concerns would be is that, yeah, okay, it gets done by a certain date, but then it gets put on the shelf after 2 years, and for 8 years it's kind of dormant. How do you make a plan relevant for 10 years so that you can update it and project into the next period? Because basically we're in a rush to get this done, but yet the real goal should be not 10 years, but 20 years. We should be thinking generationally. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, I also think
Well-
the town should apply for an extension, because there is an allowance, and in our case, there was some mitigating circum, and we already mentioned last month that because the state is still updating their POCD, we need to wait for them to finish their process, and then we can do ours. So, I think the town should apply for an extension.
I would rather be a fast turtle than a half-assed rabbit.
Yeah.
Well, to me, I think we need to, if we don't get a lot of guidance in the direction, that we carve out our own direction for it. And try to bring other people along to our, because that's what we're kind of ultimately doing from our
Mhm.
viewpoint anyway, so.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, for me, that's the exciting point, is that, you can really get a chance to convey the value of nature that people take for granted. Who remembers their spleen?
Okay, so Dan, I'm gonna send to you what I showed at screen shared tonight. So those were 2 documents, my comments to Bill's, and what I'll do, Bill, if you don't have any problem, I'll just make the changes in your copy, take the comments out and offer that to Dan. Is that all right?
That's fine. Yep, that's
All right,
fine.
and then I'll also give you the listing of the buffered community water supply systems table.
Yep,
That's a Excel spreadsheet, so you can add or
Yeah.
subtract other stuff if you wanted. So whatever I send to you, Dan, I'll CC the rest of the commission. And I'll try to see if I can
Yeah.
work up some other things about climate resiliency. And see what else we have in there. I'm gonna look at Thompson's, because they did theirs only like 2 or 3 years ago, and see how they approached it, but that's using the old plan of development, the old state. I just really not sure how the new one's gonna work. Oh, we're walking in the dark here.
Yeah,
And
Well,
Dan, just one minor edit to the agenda that you posted on the town website.
Okay,
Marla's notes should be 10/7, not 11/7.
thank you. Yeah, I just saw that.
That's really minor, but I kind of noticed that. I was like, oh, it isn't the 7th yet.
Yeah, I can make that edit to that.
Back to the future.
Yeah, right.
All right.
just one side comment that some friends of Mark and I, they're farmers, when they talk about building houses on farmland, they call that planting the last crop.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Sounds like a song.
I saw a great title for a song. Of course, it's country western, but the future is not what it used to be.
Yeah.
Ain't it that so?
It's old news now.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan, do you have any other business?
Nope, I think we've reached the end of our agenda, and I don't see any others in our Zoom room that could
Yep.
provide citizen comments outside of the commission.
I have
Okay.
something to say.
Okay.
Okay,
I
Amy.
have a few things to say. Marla, you're 100% correct in the fact that you should be giving the information, like what maps are needed, what the town needs, that information from the commission to move forward. I would give her the most detailed information to go forward with.
Do you want me to send
Um,
it to you too? As well
you
as,
can, I mean, I would just forward it to Delia. Like, but what you said about, having the assets and having the maps and updating the GIS and the future plans to be able to make decisions, that's like a key concept right there that they should hear, because that is something that would go into the plan, because it is for the betterment. And just a few other corrections. There is a POCD budget. They have 17,000 in change, and they put so much towards it every year. And they already went into the Board of Finance and got approval for extra to complete it. So they do have funds to complete the POCD. Rebecca's grant was for soil work, so she's doing soil scientist, soil testing type of work with the Ag Commission, but it's all soil related. And they did hire an assessor, so we have a full-time assessor starting, I think, next week, who has assessor experience. That was announced today at a meeting I was at. So the assessor thing is changing, but it's very important that we have the right platforms to input our data, that it's being used correctly, and that we can pull these maps. I agree 100%. It's not so much how to make the maps, but just the maps that we need and why we need them.
okay.
That's it, I think, from my notes that I wrote.
That's very helpful though.
Yep. Thank you, Amy.
Yep.
And Dan, you already forwarded my comments to Delia, right?
Your previous ones, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll work on seeing what other maps I think, that may be relevant as I work through the climate resiliency stuff. So I can come up a full list. So I'll send that to you and to Bill. I'll send it to the rest of the commission too, just so if they have ideas that I missed, they can do that. And then you can send it on to Delia. Amy, I don't have Delia's email address, nor do I think it's appropriate that I contact her directly. I think I should be working through Dan, who is our agent. Because he'll know more about what's going on, and you'll talk to him more than I will talk to Delia. You guys have more. You just gave so much more information than what I had.
I think it should go through Dan through Delia, but just in my conversations with Delia and planning and zoning and the work on the POCD, you hit it right on the head with the information that we need and why we need to move the town forward.
Yep.
And you're correct that planning and zoning, that's their specialty. So they need these other commissions to think about it just the way that you are, and say, this is what we need for the town, and then they'll incorporate that in the report.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Unless
I'm-
anybody has
I'm-
any further business, go ahead,
Yeah,
Mark.
I'm fading, so I was gonna make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay, go ahead.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
Okay, motion by Mark Parker, second by Stuart Peasley to adjourn. Are there any other discussion or objections?
No discussion on adjournment. Robert
Okay.
rules.
All those in
That's right.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. No
What time you
opposed,
got,
no
Bill?
abstain. 9:56 PM. This meeting is adjourned.
9:56. Okay, I wanted to get out of here by 10. I'm fading.
Have a good night, guys.
Good
Yeah, good
night.
night, everybody. Thank you
Night.
very much. Thank you, Amy.
Have a good
Thank
one,
you,
everybody.
Dan.
Bye.
Yeah, good night.
Thank you.